Well, hello, folks, and thank you for joining us again. It's again a delight to have with us Andrew Rowell, who is going to be sharing his thoughts with us on Christian apologetics and lordship. My name is Dave Walton, and we also have with us Alan Pallister and Steve Layfield, and we're looking forward to an interesting discussion in this session. So over to you, Andrew.
Okay, thank you very much, Dave. I'll share my screen as usual. As I said to the others before the start, this is a somewhat different approach this time. I told them that I'd been brainstorming, and sometimes my brainstorms come out with something productive, and sometimes they just come out with a mess. So we'll see what happens. So I've been thinking about the apologetics of lordship, and I've had some new ideas and thoughts with regards to this. And so I wanted to share these with the other men and bat them about a bit and see where we end up. So lordship is the reality, in my view, of personhood, which is necessarily hierarchical, with God being the absolute and ultimate and eternal person, and that this is how we're built to behave and think about the universe. And so I'm thinking particularly in terms of boundaries. So don't worry too much about the details of this image, but the idea here is that we've got a boundary wall. We're very familiar with boundary walls, and we probably live within a house, and of course the wall of the house is a boundary, and the door. So here I've put in two entrances. Well, it's an entrance and an exit. So on this side of the wall you've got the inside, and over here then you've got the outside, and you've got a way to get in and you've got a way to get out. And so you could imagine somebody who had nothing better to do going round and round and round in the in and out the out. But the important thing is that there is an inside and there is an outside, and that those two places are completely different, and that they are separated by a clear boundary, and that there is an exit and an entrance which can be controlled. Now I'm getting a little bit of an echo, so I hope that isn't coming through to everybody else.
Just slightly.
Okay. And so what I'm trying to communicate is that there is a no, I'm going to struggle with this echo, I think.
What if we just all try muting ourselves, except you, Andrew?
Yeah, that might work.
Might not. I don't think so.
Worth a try. And if I turn mine off, not going to help. Can you still hear me? Oh, you won't be able to say anything anyway, will you? Okay. Let's try that. Can you hear me? Give me a thumbs up, actually. That's the easiest way to do it, isn't it? A thumbs up if you can hear me. Good, good. Okay. So let's continue with it like that. That seems to work. So what I'm trying to communicate is that this idea of a wall is absolutely fundamental to the way that we think about the whole of reality. So I've got four examples here. What I'm trying to get to is that there's a clear and tight link between what we believe about the world that we're in and this nature of the world that we're in, whether it's personal or impersonal, the whole of reality, whether it's basically personal or impersonal. There is a link between how we think about that question And it's directly connected with how we think about ourselves and our own will, and what that really is, what a human being is, what a person is. And so if we make the universe basically impersonal, it has a necessary consequence with regards to our views of what we are ourselves, and what our will, particularly what our will is, and what it means to make a decision. And so the key link concept is this idea of a wall and a gate. You have to go in and out through the gate. And this gate then is an authority revelation. And so on this diagram then, I've got a picture of what's called a biological membrane, which is quite a complicated thing, but it's basically the edge of every single living cell. You cannot possibly have life. So viruses don't have a membrane, but viruses are not alive until they get into a living cell. And they have to get into the living cell and take it over like pirates boarding a ship. And they have to get through this membrane onto the inside to take over the cell. So a cell then is like a city, and it's got a wall, and it has gates, and the gates are created by proteins that sit in the wall, and they can control what comes in, and they can control what goes out. And you can't have life without this membrane. Every single instance that we know of in the universe of life requires this complete boundary all the way around it, so that the inside is different from the outside, and that there are these gates. So life is built on this model of a wall with gates. And we have it in our own bodies. We perhaps more obviously aware of it. We have a boundary to our bodies, and we have our skin, and we're aware of what our skin is doing and where it is, and we're aware of this edge between us and the rest of the universe. And we have particular interest in entrances and exits. So I'm blowing air through one of the exits, and one of the pipes goes into my lungs, and the other goes down, if I'm swallowing, into my gut. And you have other holes and interactions with the outside world in the bodies. But basically, again, you have this exactly the same model. You have a wall, a boundary with gates, and those gates are control. And we have exactly the same thing if you go up another level. And so wherever there are groups of human beings, you have exactly the same structure. So we have it in our homes. So inside a home, you'll have the family, the little group of the family, and with a front door, and then maybe a garden with a gate. But again, it's a place for people, and it's distinguished from other places. And you have exactly the same with regards to international borders. This is a rather unusual one because it's got the Netherlands on one side and Belgium on the other, and the border is simply marked by some crosses on the paving slabs. That's highly unusual. You can't usually cross between countries just by stepping over a paving slab. It's much more usually that they are very elaborate, and you have to get permission to go from one country to another. So that's a very unusual situation. So you have this situation in cells, you have it in animals, you have it in nations, and you have it in words. And this is what this is meant to be here. Words carry meaning, and you transfer meaning from one person to another using words, using sentences. And those sentences then go into the person, and they do something to the person. And the idea is that they are meant to change that person, and they are meant to change the beliefs of that person. So when we give some news, for example, we give the news that the Anglican Church has finally come to an end this week, and that news comes into your brains, and you either say, absolute rubbish, Andrew, what you're talking about, or you say, has it? And we have a discussion and I explain what I mean by that. And the words then carry a freight. They carry some meaning with them. The important thing about words is not the actual sounds. So the stream of sounds that is coming out of my mouth, this continuous stream of sounds, it's not really the sounds that are important. You mix up these sounds in a particular order, in a particular way, and we call the particular flavor of the mixture words, and those words have to go in a particular order to make sentences and paragraphs and so on, to make a proper communication, a proper argument. Here's an actual example of in a cell. You've got the membrane, and this is an actual example of a gate, and these are tremendously important. We can only see because we have this kind of system. We can only do anything because we have this kind of system of active, deliberate transport using energy across a membrane. And so you can see this protein has got two different configurations, and there's a particular molecule that attaches at this end, and when it attaches, the whole protein changes shape and it exerts a force on the substrate and causes it to shoot through the middle of the protein. So it's like a tube with a bit of jet propulsion, and it blasts the substrate to the other side of the membrane, and you've got active control over this gate. And so there's the main diagram then again. And in this case, it is showing the idea of this wall with as regards a person. So if we think of a person, we have to think of a person in terms of a whole kingdom. And so it's a weird way of thinking, because it's as if we've got people inside a person, and each one of those people inside a person have got people inside them, and it's people all the way down, and there's no end to this, is what we're saying. It's an infinite. It's not turtles all the way down. It's people all the way down. It's personness all the way down. And so if we think of this as a person, then what we're saying is that a person can change the world, and a person can get information back as a result of those changes. The person is looking for what happens as a result of those changes and get some feedback coming back. And inside the kingdom, then, if you like, or inside the city, inside the person, the city of the person, you have a whole nation of beliefs. And if you like, you have a vision of the king and the kingdom. And that vision of the king and the kingdom results in a vision of law and order. And so when you are acting, when you are doing something, you are seeking to conform the world in the direction of your vision for the happy life in the happy world. And that is, if you begin to take that to pieces, what you end up with is a king and a kingdom, an ideal person, and with a society built around the model of that ideal person. So this is the idea of that you find in Hosea, which is the idea of like people, like priest. So the priest is the one who gets the vision of God, who's the ultimate king, and the priest then transmits that vision. There is an education system for transmitting that vision to the people, and so there is this cascade of the vision of God in the holy place, which the high priest sees, it cascades down to the next priests and the next priests and the Levites, and the temple worship and the songs and the poems, and the whole culture then is built around this vision of the king, the vision of God. And eventually then it comes out to ordinary families and ordinary people and parents speaking to their children about the truth of the living God. And so that is meant to control the action. So that's meant to control what we do, our priorities, how we make decisions, and all that we are striving for in our lives, our vision of the happy life in the happy place. But we know that that isn't always the case. We run up against serpents and dragons, and there's chaos and confusion and disorder. And if we think we're going to have an easy life and an easy time, we better wake up, because there's a battle, there's a conflict, and we're going to run up against difficulties and a struggle. But we don't give up. We continue, and we're trying to change the world, and we're trying to change our lives to be more like the vision that we have of the happy life in the happy world. And so there's a battle, and we send out our soldiers then into the world. Our soldiers are our actions and our words, trying to change the world to conform to this image of true and real social and collective happiness. And they fight their fight, and they send a message back to us about what's happened out there. And so we have our motor system. We do things with our legs and with our arms and with our lips and with our bodies. And this results in changes, and we see those changes and we hear what's happened, and we bring back the messages to inside. And when the messages come back, we have to say, well, was that what we expected? Do we have to make some updates to our system of beliefs? Is there new information here? Does it tally with what we already knew? And so there's a corresponding, and this is the beauty of it, there's a corresponding reality inside compared with that outside. And the whole system of this circular arrangement is meant to make sure that the vision on the inside matches the reality on the outside. So we're continually trying to conform the inside to the outside. Steve, you're going to interrupt me. You're going to turn on your sound.
Yes. Can you hear me now, Andrew?
I can hear you now. Yeah.
Well, I was fascinated by what you've just said, and it strikes me that, and you alluded to it, that Zion itself as the Old Testament city, the way that God ordered it and structured it with Levites and the wall itself, and the various different officers, the fact that the elders met at the city gate, and that so much policing and kind of social interactions were exemplified there. Is that what you're telling us as well? Does that mean that we can go to our Old Testament and examine that city structure, Zion, and learn from it?
Well, yes. In short, I'm convinced that. So it's fascinating to me that you'd have heard of Jonathan Haidt. He wrote quite a influential and very a bestseller, The Anxious Generation. He's written other books. He's done a lot of really good work in the social sciences and in psychology and neurobiology. And he's an atheist, but he has come to the conviction that believing in God is really, really important.
Wow, yes.
Which is really, really fascinating to me. And he's also come to the conviction that is universal amongst human beings, that we believe ourselves to be a temple in which dwells a God whom we call the soul. So he believes that it's universal amongst all human beings, that we have this conviction that we have a body and we have a soul that indwells. And so the body then is a temple. And of course, this is absolutely, totally in line with the idea of Christianity, that our bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit. That's what they were designed to be. And so there is this relationship between what is on the inside and God. And I think that this, if you follow this idea through the whole of Scripture, you go all the way back to the Garden of Eden, which was the idea of a paradise is a walled garden, and Eden, clearly Eden was a city. It had these gates that could be that the cherubim could be set by to guard. So the whole idea of Eden was that it was a guardable, controllable city, and Adam was the king. He had the task of controlling who was allowed in and who had to be expelled. And of course, the picture is that he should have expelled the serpent. He should have expelled the serpent. If only he had expelled the serpent. And so our longing then is to get back to something like that. Go on, Steve.
Yeah, well, just to say, I mean, so it seems, and it's been pointed out several times, that the Bible begins with the garden, finishes with a city, and
yes.
the conclusion is there, I'm sure, is highly significant and resonates with all that you're saying.
The city is a garden as well, yeah. I mean,
that's right.
It's full of trees. It's got the river of the water of life. It's got the tree of life, and Jesus calls it the paradise. Today you'll be to the dying thief. This very day, you're going to be in the paradise. You're going to be in the Eden, in the walled garden. So it's a city and a garden. Yeah.
Yes.
I think we're struggling to express the wonder of the place, and we have to use all of the metaphors that we experience of a wonderful capital city. So it's called New Jerusalem. That's no accident. Yeah.
Yes.
It's new creation. So there's something like Noah coming out into a brand new world. From the awful journey of the being in the ark with all the animals, and then there's this new creation, and out they come into this whole new world. And so all of these stories are indicating this is the fundamental idea with regards to God's plan for dwelling in the midst of his people. It's a lovely picture of God coming to dwell amongst us. And
at the very end,
yep.
Andrew, at the very end of Ezekiel's vision, it concludes, doesn't it, with, and the Lord is with, yes. The Lord dwells there. The Lord is in the city.
Yes. And it's the whole idea of Emmanuel. It's what yes. Jesus is. He is the King. He is the one through whom God is revealed to us. And the kingship of the living God is, if you like, totally unveiled for us in the person of Jesus Christ. In him we see God. He who has seen me has seen the Father. Jesus says, you aren't going to get any better than this. Yes. You aren't going to get any clearer than this. This is the final story. I am, he says, and he repeats that over and over again. He is the final revelation of what Moses confronted on Sinai. He's the fullness of it. And so if I come back to this, so yes, I do believe that this is the idea of Zion. This is the idea of the New Jerusalem. This is the idea of God dwelling amongst his people, and God dwelling in his people as well. It's so intimate. It's this marriage intimacy with God that he's talking about. So where did I get to? This circle. Then I think I got to hear this circle of. We talked last time, I think it was, about the way in which the idea of normal science is that you gradually increase you gradually refine, if you like. You go wrong one way and that's corrected, and you come back the other way, and you sort of iterate towards the truth. And I think there's something very fundamental and true about that, and that is how we're meant to work. And so this isn't just an eternal circle. It's actually meant to be a spiral. So we're meant to change each interaction with the world, and we're meant to learn something from God. All that we do is meant to be revelatory. It's the picture of a human being then is eternally getting to know God better, I think. Steve again, go on.
Well, just to say, it feels, I mean, certainly my experience, my testimony would be that I've been on a pilgrimage. I've experienced change and adjustment of my mind, my perception of the world, myself, throughout the course of my life. I suspect that's normal, and that when we're healthy, we're conscious that these changes and adjustments are taking place, all constrained by the Word of God.
Okay, yeah, I totally agree, and same with me. But I would add this, that just as in science you can have revolutions, so in personal life you can have revolutions, and I believe that's what the
Yes.
new birth is talking about. It's the biggest possible upturning of everything, yeah, and
Absolutely.
you become
Yeah.
a brand new person. It's as if the old person. It's not just as if, it's actually real. Yeah, the old person has died. Yeah, and you're a new creation. Yeah, there's something of eternal significance that has taken place. There's been this transition, and I believe that what happens then is that these messages that are coming in from reality to us, from reality and from other people, are challenging our belief system. And I believe that our belief system then isn't just a flat thing, yeah, where all the beliefs are a penny each. It's a highly structured hierarchical system, and there's certain beliefs that are much more basic than others, and you start tampering with those beliefs and the whole thing can come down. Yeah, and this is why we get so uptight. Yeah, this is why when our beliefs are challenged, it isn't just, oh well, it's it doesn't really matter. It's either brown bread or white bread, and it doesn't much matter either way. Okay, no, it's not like that. Yeah, this is life. Yeah, and so you challenge somebody about being transgender, or you challenge somebody about the legitimacy of homosexual activity, and you're into a storm. Yeah, you're into an earthquake. You're into a geological fault in the universe. Yeah, and because our life is built upon it, so much of our commitment and our treasure and all that we value is built on these beliefs. And somebody tampering with those beliefs, you're tampering with somebody's life, somebody's soul. Yeah, come on, Steve.
Well,
I like the interruptions. I think it's good. That's what I'm looking for. Yeah, please.
So I think this is what Van Til and Barnson described as a clash of worldview.
Yes.
When and the worldview comprises a whole network of ideas and beliefs. These are not, when we don't adjust these one at a time. It's all part of an interrelated whole, a worldview which has to, as you say, cataclysmically come to changes, or very momentous ones.
And what I'm saying is that I think it's there clearly in Scripture, but I think that with the semantic primes, the binary nature of this belief system has been more clearly revealed than ever before. Okay, and what I'm saying is that the basic binary at the bottom of our belief system is this switch between whether we believe that the universe is fundamentally personal or whether we believe it's fundamentally impersonal. And that is the most basic flip. That's the most basic switch. And you have to have your system one way or the other. And what I was saying last time is that having your system flipped in the direction of stuff, of matter, which is the materialist view, the physicalist view, having it switched that way is fundamentally depressing. It is fundamentally hopeless. It is fundamentally without this glorious vision. And so this spiral path, then you can go up it or you can go down it, and whether you're going up it or down it is set by that switch. Yeah. So if you set the switch to materialism, you're going down, and as you go down, more and more and more is destroyed, and that's what I think Jesus means by eternal hell, eternal destruction. It's self-destruction. It's self. Uh, it's an endless, increasing darkness and distance and despair and fragmentation, and that's why it's so awful, and that's why Jesus, I believe, came, and that's the passion behind real preaching. It's the passion behind the Bible. It's the passion of God, and he's saying, come back to me, come back to me, don't delay, come now, come. And he's saying to all of us, come closer, come closer. This is the only safe place. The closer you get, the safer and happier you'll be. And so
Yeah.
I think that's important too. Alan, were you wanting to say something?
No,
Okay, good.
not at the moment, thanks.
I
not
was.
good. Oh, sorry. Go on, Dave.
Yes, this business of the inside and the outside and the boundary, of course, and implicit in a lot of what you've been saying is the concept of the filter.
Yes.
That you sort of go out there. There is stuff.
Yes.
Which you then filter before you bring it inside.
Well, I think the filtering, I don't know that we get, well, I think that there is clearly a filtering that's happening in our sensory system. Yeah. So people who've studied attention say that our fovea has a very small area where you get the most intense information. And we focus that, and this is what advertisers are going for. They're going for our attention. And it's interesting, we talk about paying attention. That's no accident. Yeah. If you get somebody's attention, they're paying you for it. They're giving you something of real value and importance. And we choose where we look. We choose what we pay attention to, and that's just absolutely essential. We can't. We have to, like you say, we have to give priority to something over the other. We have to make. We have to set this hierarchy of values. We have to put something at the top. We have to have a God. There's no possibility of being without something at the top. You have to have something at the top, which is your primary goal.
There was a famous lecturer in philosophy, and his name escapes me at the moment, but he apparently, in one of his lectures, said to the audience, "Gentlemen, I want you to observe and make a note of your observations." And of course, this is the problem of focus, that you've got to have some kind of starting point, some kind of hierarchy in order to know which of your observations might be important.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then of course you come back to the concept of the filter. And the interesting thing is, I think there was a guy called Larry Holt who taught in one of the business schools, and he said something like, without barriers to communication, there can be no communication.
Yeah.
There's an understanding that the kind of filtering of information is absolutely, you can't just be wide open to everything.
Yep, and so was it.
Get his noise.
William James talked about he had a wonderful expression of it, the booming,
buzzing, confusion.
That's the one.
Yes.
Booming, buzzing, confusion.
That's the idea. Yes. Now
there's too much. The point is that there's just too much information. You have to choose. Yeah, you have to choose. You have to select, and you have to do that. And some of it's quite a lot of it is done automatically for us. Yeah. So a lot of our. So I use the illustration of me going for a jog in the morning, and I'm listening to my headphone. I've got my headphones on. I'm listening to my headphones, but I can still hear. And if I'm running along beside a hedge, and a pigeon suddenly flies out of the hedge, just a foot away from my head, I don't get any choice. Yeah. I flinch and fly all over the place because I think that I'm being assaulted. Yeah, and that's automatic. And don't get much choice about it. Yeah. Very quickly you turn and you face the situation, but all the time you're gathering information and processing the information and focusing on that which is most relevant to adjust future behavior. A lot of it's automatic, but we do have this ability to override. I mean, even a reflex you can override to some degree by willpower, by choosing. Okay, so where we are worshipping, where we're in a right relationship with God, this is a spiral path that leads. I think this is basically Jacob's ladder, yeah. And I think that the picture of DNA is a good image of Jacob's ladder. It's a spiral path up to heaven and to God, and we're focusing on that which is good, that which is beautiful, and that which is true. And this is the journey into the celestial city.
And the problem we have is, I mean, if you think about the body of knowledge in science, of course, if only all the gatekeepers had a Christian worldview, then of course the body of science as it built up would be true and noble and good. But the problem is we've got enemies in the camp. And so we've got all kinds of things going wrong with the scientific reception system. Yeah. Because you've got evolutionists who are pushing a particular line or giving credit to a particular line. Yeah. And so the challenge we face really is to somehow tune that filtering system so that what we get on the inside is actually valid kingdom stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the wonderful thing about science is that there is a sense in which it's self-correcting, and we're so thankful to God for that. And I do believe. I mean, I know that other people will struggle maybe with this, but I do believe that. Well, I believe and hope and pray that evolution will collapse under its own weight. And I think there is some evidence that we are, as our knowledge of how, I mean, I think it's more difficult now to believe in evolution than it was for Charles Darwin. I think that he understood the cell as a undifferentiated blob of jelly, and what we now know is that it's just as complicated as a modern city, and stunning quantities of micro technology in every single living cell. And the problem with the idea of the membrane is that you've got to get all of that in there in one go. You know, you this business of having a wall and gates is that you can't, you've got to have the whole thing working from the get-go. Yeah, there's you can't how do you put it? You can't tinker around as a living thing if you're not alive. Yeah.
Yes, exactly.
You can't reproduce what you've got if you're dead. Yeah, and there's a lot that you need in order to be not dead. So, go on.
No, I was just agreeing, really. Yes, I think that's right. I think that, Behe's book, Darwin's Black Box, kind of deals with this to some extent. Yes. But of course, the problem, I mean, as soon as you look at the cell or a living organism from the point of view of its information content, and you realize that information has to have an intelligent origin, then you realize evolution is completely up the creek without a paddle.
Yep. You need life in order to get life.
Yes, exactly.
And it goes all the way, forever and ever. So, how are we doing for time?
We've got about another 10 minutes, I think.
Okay, let me just go on then, because this is a picture of Babel, and as I said, the spiral path can go upwards or downwards, and depending on whether you put God at the center or whether you put man at the center. And so switching the switch away from being God, away from being fundamentally personal, i.e. theistic, with a creator, a personal, intelligent, rational God with whom we can have a relationship and in whose image we are built. If you take away that idea and you say that it is basically an emergent universe where life has emerged on its own by chance, and gradually by chance human beings have resulted, and therefore human beings and maybe superhuman beings ultimately transhuman and maybe even AI human beings. If you put that at the top, you have a completely different system. And can I just spend a little while then talking about that system, because we've been here before, and basically in our Christian worldview we have this empire structure, and if you like, Babel is a pre-version of Babylon. Because it's related, it's not a million miles away. I mean, the word is the same, isn't it? Babel and Babylon, it's the same thing. And so you have this idea of man as at the pinnacle. The idea at the beginning was you shall be as gods, and that was the temptation to completely switch the whole view of reality to put human beings at the top. Yeah, we may have to share it with a few other gods, but so what? At least we're gods. And so you have this idea then of human power, human control, human empire, with nothing above it, being absolute. And we make the rules, and there's no higher authority. And you have various successive empires going down to the Roman Empire. And Daniel sees this stone cut without hands from the mountain that smashes into the this vision of man-centered empire, and it's instead the vision of a Messiah, which is the thread that's gone all the way through the Old Testament. And so, where have I got to? How does this work out then in history? Now, in terms of where we've got to today, so I'm trying to paint a background that comes to the importance of words and definitions, because that's where I'm heading for, but it might take some sessions to get there. The idea of definitions being important, I think, goes to our fundamental problem today. And this is related to our fundamental problem today. So the Roman Empire turned into Christendom, and the emperor became the combination of the Pope and the Holy Roman Emperor, until we got to the Reformation, where all of that got smashed to pieces by Luther. And we're still struggling with the broken pieces, I believe. And a whole series, we've done a whole series of international experiments trying to work out what we should do instead. So the Reformation struggle seemed to terminate to me in the 30 Years' War, and the 30 Years' War seemed to me to indicate that it would be a bad idea for Protestants and Catholics to spend the rest of the history of the world killing each other. And this then resulted in the Enlightenment and a different view of how we determine what is of ultimate authority. And so this idea then of reason being the ultimate authority, and this combining with the idea of science and reason being the ultimate authority that controls and brings into order humanity, seems to be where we ended up. And we've done a whole series of experiments then on how this works out in practice. In the remains of Christendom, we had in the UK, we had the Puritan movement, which ended up in being expelled from Anglicanism, and then we've had this problem with Anglicanism and nonconformity. And I said earlier that it's basically Anglicanism has as a national church has come to an end this week. I don't think anybody else has much has noticed what's happened, but I believe that's what has happened, at least with the current monarch. And in America, we had the War of Independence and their attempt at constituting a nation without a king. What do you do without a king? And they had a big struggle about what on earth should they put in the place of a king. They haven't got a king over the water anymore. What do we put in the place of a king? And you have the same question with the French Revolution, and it resurfaces again, and it keeps on resurfacing in Europe. It resurfaced in the American Civil War, and they wrestled with what do you do with all of these different states? How can states be combined into super states? What do you do to control and order these super states? And so that's where we are, I think, currently. And I think that the debate is actually currently raging in America and in Europe, and between America and Europe also. We're still wrestling with this problem of how do we arrange authority at the top. Sir Keir Starmer believes that you should have international lawyers, and they should be the ones that control and determine the future of humanity. You have the whole business of human rights, which is man's idea of what should control all of humanity. And I think probably that's where I should stop. Don't you?
Very, very helpful, Andrew. And to connect all that we're saying kind of in an abstract, from the abstract theory into the concrete contemporary geopolitics is absolutely wonderful. I've often thought that the entire history of the world is a failed litany of alternatives to God's truth, and I can see God is biding his time and showing us, if we're perceptive and honest, that every alternative every alternative to God's way of doing and God's recommendation, his law, it is destined to fail and to collapse.
Yep, totally. And if you replace, if you kick the true God out, you are going to have another, and it's always going to be an infinitely less replacement.
Good. Well, thank you very much, Andrew and Alan and Steve. If you followed our discussion tonight, and if you've picked up on nothing else, I hope you'll have picked up on the idea that there is a fundamental decision which each one of us has to make as to what is preeminent. Is it the personality, or is it the material? It's a decision that we all face, and it's a decision which has massive consequences for us, depending on how we decide. I do pray that you will, that we've helped you tonight to see that nothing really makes sense without a personal God who made us in his image, and it has imbued those personal qualities into us. If that's good grammar, I'm not sure it is. So bless you. Thank you for joining us, and hopefully we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.